Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's Ronsley. Today we are podcast AI edition episode, which is a new thing that we're on. And I love doing these because I get a use case from a business owner that is using AI in their business. And we have Rossco Paddison in the house today. Rossco Paddison has been in the crypto game for 7 years now, and he's got a really cool mission because he helps people who want to get their cryptocurrency to like $1 million. And he's been doing it for like a while. In the crypto world, it's like dog years, right? It's really fascinating. And he's been an early adopter to some of these things, but has been an entrepreneur for like ever. So I'm keen to get into his story. Rossco, welcome to the show. Thank you for making the time to do this. And also, I'm so keen to get into all the cool stuff you're doing with AI, because before we hit record, you were showing me some of that stuff and it was like mind blowing. Let's start with, how do you introduce yourself to your audience and what kind of results have you gotten from using AI since, I think it was what, 16, 17 months now?
Yeah, so I jumped in early with the AI writers. I jumped in early with the AI writers. Like I was playing with, Jasper and a bunch of things many moons ago and found it really cool, found it really exciting. I was a bit half-baked on it, but when I found out ChatGPT had dropped and it came out 30th of November. I found out on the 2nd of December. I basically vanished from everyone who cares and loves me in my life. Like my family was just like, where's Rossco gone? And I was on my computer from morning till night, like 7 or 8, 9, 10 days in a row. And, sleeping 3 hours a night and just like nerding out because I was like, this is one of those moments where you go deep and you go deep fast and you'll get a really cool edge, like when I went into the crypto world. So yeah, dude, I'm excited. I'm pumped for this space. It's very useful.
So when you think about what has happened, right, since you gotten into it, like what kind of results can the business or you show from getting into AI? Like what's productivity has improved? What does that look like?
Yeah, so one of the things I really struggle with as a business owner is like copywriting, sales copywriting, writing invitations, emails, all that kind of stuff. But I've done stuff in the past that's worked. And I latched on pretty quickly that if I took stuff that had already worked and got the AI to rewrite it, then my audience would think it was new stuff. And so I pushed out stuff and made money on it immediately. So I was super stoked with that, from different types of hands up engagement posts to emails to webinar copy, all sorts of stuff. So did that immediately, and that, put money in the bank.
Let's talk about that, because let's break that down. I think also you just skipped across a whole bunch of things because you made a lot of assets in that spiel right now that you gave me. So can you break that down? Like what happened? What was the sequence? What did you do? So you took some of your old content, you rewrote them, but what kind of assets did you create and what did that look like?
I have a 9-word email that I use that I send out to my database from time to time. And I just copy and pasted the 9-word email in and literally said, rewrite this for me 20 different ways. Like it was just simple. Like it wasn't a big complex prompt. There's no secret to what I did with that. The one thing I did do to clean it up and make it a bit more fluent is that I copy and pasted the results it spat out and I chucked it into a tool called Quillbot and I selected the fluency mode. That just humanized the language a lot. But recently I also figured out something else that makes for fluent copy, which the AI will do sometimes and it won't do sometimes. It's a little bit naughty, according to it, which is I ask it to rewrite sentences as a slightly drunk person. And what it does, it's really fun because what it does is it makes it sound like two dudes sitting at a bar talking to each other. It's like ultra casual language. So it actually makes it sound very human, less formal. It's quite nice. I enjoy it. So 9-word email is one thing. Social media posts that I've used to get people to like kind of put their hands up to say that they want to get like a lead magnet or some sort of a conversation or an invite to a webinar or something like that. One I used that was great was a webinar invite hands up post that I've done on Facebook before. I got it to rewrite that and I put up the 5 different posts that spat out for me that I actually liked after the list. And I put them up on Facebook and I got like 120 people on a webinar by just getting these different posts rewritten and putting it on Facebook and then DMing people a link for a webinar. So that was super cool. Obviously, if you can get 120 people to sit through listening to you for 60 or 90 minutes, something might happen.
I'd love to get your thoughts on what are some misconceptions that people have when they get into AI? What are things that you've seen along the way that you've kind of gone, oh, that's really interesting that they saw it that way? Any perspectives that we can give the audience to start off with to kind of go, well, this is the basics to understand how AI works?
A few of the common mistakes I guess I see people make is thinking that it's not a thing and I'll just wait to see what kind of where it ends up and then I'll use it. I think a competitor in your industry or niche using the same tool is coming for your lunch, not the AI. So I would not ignore it. The second mistake that I've seen that's really just, it's super obvious to me, but not obvious to most, is people thinking it only produces mediocre output. And that's only true if it gets mediocre input. So mediocre in, mediocre out, good quality prompts in, great quality content out. So the onus is on you, not the tool. Like a carpenter can't blame the hammer because it's not hitting every nail in.
I am a software engineer by trade. And when I did computer science and software engineering, this used to be a theory in terms of like prompt engineering. There was a whole subject on it, but it could be possible because this is how logic works. And this is how logically you would kind of instruct a computer to behave. And that's literally what prompt engineering is. Let's get into the prompt side of things. I know people are expecting a lot out of AI and they kind of not wrapping their head around the fact that it can do some pretty amazing things. Let's break some of those things down and let's talk about how someone can get started in the right way.
Yeah, when it comes to prompts, I think that there's sort of like three cornerstone things you need to get right. The first thing is you need to be able to define a really clear objective. Like you actually have to be able to say, I want a blog written. You have to be able to say, I want a procedure document about tying shoelaces. Like you need to be able to say, define clearly what is your objective? What do you want the AI to do? The second thing that you need to be really good at is feeding the AI really good context. So gathering all the right ingredients together, just like if you're baking a cake, making sure you give the AI all the right pieces of the ingredients. And then the third thing you need to be really exceptional at is knowing or understanding what tone or you want it to output it all in. So you have to set the tone. And this is all ideation on you as the prompt person. The AI can help you come up with different, like it can list out tones and give you options, but it can't make the decision. So you've got to decide what's the objective, what's the ingredients, what's the tone. That's your job. I just want to expand on this particular thing we're talking about, which is like, this is the ideation phase. And that's those three things we just talked about. Like what's the, define an objective, gather ingredients and set tone. And I'll read this out for all the audio listeners, but that's like phase one. Phase two is like the creation phase. That's when you go and you unleash the AI. You allow the thing to create a draft for you, give you something, just like see the first run. And in Hollywood, all the best movies have more film on the cutting room floor than they do in the film that you see at the end. And so it's about just get the drafts, get the volume of the drafts happening. Move through that fast. Don't be afraid to like keep shooting camera, right? Then you actually look at it and you try and stitch it all together and look at it like through a quality check lens. And once you've done that, you can move on to an editing phase and an adjustment phase, a refinement phase. That's like the last step in the process. It's down the track a little bit. Yeah. And then obviously once you've finished something, you can shoot it out into the world. I have a shameful admission to make, which is I didn't create this process. I didn't come up with this process. I literally went to the AI and asked it for it. So I literally said, hey, I want to build a high level model of thinking for prompt craft for AI writers.
Wow.
And I asked it to actually give me an idea. And then I said, let's spin this around. Say, I've got a good AI writer already, and I want to build frameworks for coaches. They create stuff using AI writers in 3 domains. They're intellectual property, marketing materials, and sales materials is usually what they use AI writers for. What I'm thinking is a few primary phases that we'd go through and show me each of the steps they need to do in that in a linear flow. And then it gave me a top level idea. And then I kept working on it. I'm like, rewrite this as a direct response copywriter so we could see it a little bit more this way. Then I asked it to make it in cool one-word phase names. It came up with the define the objective and the gather the ingredients. It did it all. I kind of span it around a little bit and changed some stuff. And then I got it to come up with these phases, the ideate, create, elevate phases. It did it all. It made the whole model. It did bunch of the thinking for us, which is just insane to me.
Wow.
I think it's super cool. I obviously love this stuff. I make some assumptions about AI that most people might not. And the assumptions I make about it is that it can do anything. And that's not necessarily true. It can't right now. There's limitations to it, but I assume it can. And I don't censor my prompts in my head. Like I just play. I allow myself to go, right, it can do everything. It can probably do this.
Ladies and gentlemen listening, Rossco.co/wearepodcast. If you want all those cool notes and that method, that's where you go. Also, Rossco.co, is where you go to find all the cool stuff that Rossco's up to. You mentioned that you make assumptions, right? You said assumptions, but you gave us one, which is that it can do anything. Are there any other assumptions that you do make when you're thinking of doing something? Yeah.
The second thing is the other assumption I make is that I can do anything. So when ChatGPT couldn't do it, a task that I asked it to, and I'll give you this example, I assumed that I could be the bridge to help ChatGPT do it. So I do some trading and stuff in crypto, right? And one thing I love is this particular indicator called a 26 EMA, which is a marketing trading signal that happens on charts, like you've seen stock charts with candles and stuff like that. And I wanted to create a piece of code to get that indicator happening a particular way and the exact way that I use it. My point is I can't code. And so I asked the chat to give me a piece of code based on a very clear set of principles that I wanted. I spent a lot of time gathering the ingredients, getting the prompt right, and it spat me out an example piece of code. I copied that piece of code and I put it into TradingView where I could launch the Pine script. You can't be writing an error, a compile error. I put my headphones in, turned some loud trance music on, and for about 2.5 hours, I code from TradingView back to ChatGPT, back and forth, and I just be copying and pasting the wall I was kind of hitting, and just like grabbed the bug, sent it to ChatGPT, and said, "Hey, it can't compile because of X." And I put the error. I said, "Give me 5 more things I can try," and it would spit out 5 more pieces of code, and I'd go change it back and forth. And at the end of 2.5 hours and 110 commits in code, that just means changes, I had a piece of working code, and I'm not a coder. And I did it by copying and pasting error codes back into the thing and asking for more options. And I would just say, give me 5 more options. It's not working. It's not compiling. So anyway, I could code suddenly, and it felt like a bit of a Matrix moment. It was like I know Kung Fu.
What kinds of things that do you think like a business owner should go for first? Like what kind of processes should they attack first in their business? Because this is an easily something to go, I can play on this all day, but how do I put this to use and actually get it to execute something that I'm currently doing or not doing well?
Great question. I like the notion or the principle of using the distraction as a way to focus yourself. So if you're going to be distracted with AI tools, figure out what is the top domino you could focus on in order to move that forward. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of business principles that are pre-AI that you should be thinking about. Like if you haven't got sales and they're not converting, then focus on conversions. Use the AI to fix that problem in your business, So just use it to fix problems. And whatever is the most important problem, you can write a list of all your problems and prioritize the list of problems and just literally go, that's the biggest problem I have to solve right now, and use it for that. As a business owner, that's kind of your responsibility, is to fix those problems. And there's multitude of things you can do, whether it's, I've used it to write really good content. I have a framework for that we can share as well. I've used it to write a grant app for a project I'm philanthropically involved with. I've used it to write lots of documentation, SOPs, used it to even create org charts for a friend who was trying to figure out who we should hire and fire and what the gaps were. Like there's all sorts of tooling you can use it for. It's kind of endless. I literally just took time to actually get a list out of the AI of all the different document types that are in an organization that's at scale. And it gave me a list, and it's like, it just had simple things in there, like a social media marketing plan, KPIs for your sales guys. And it just created a document list for me. And it's like, okay, well, what documents do I need internally to run a streamlined organization? What things do I need to think through? What things have I been avoiding, those kind of things. So
That's such a different use case as well, because most people are thinking about AI for copy, and it actually can do way more crazy things. So let's get into this other copywriting thing that you've built. And I would love to kind of show people how you're writing your copy.
little shout out to Josh McKitterick, a buddy of mine who built this process for extracting content. Super cool. And he has this thing called a planet builder, which has these like sections. And these questions that I've created down here were inspired 100% by that. So shout out to him. But basically, what I wanted to do was write really good content. And I'll show you the article in a sec. But basically, I got the chat to answer these 7 questions separately. And then I stitched the answers to those questions together and made a blog out of it, basically, right? First question was just like set a scene as to why a niche might want to use a thing. So it could be like set a scene as to why podcasters want to use a Rodecaster Pro to edit their stuff, whatever it is, right? So what problem existed for podcasters before Rodecaster Pros existed? As an example, right? And I'm just putting niche and things, so podcaster and Rodecaster in that sentence. What is the big idea that Rodecasters make actually work? Like what does it make happen that didn't happen before? What is the high level steps that users have to take to use the thing, right? So use the Rodecaster in that example, right? And then I asked it, what is the eyeline procedures? Include the number steps to using that thing for podcasters or a niche, right? And then I wrote the next question, which is Eli 5, which stands for explain it like I'm 5. After someone has used a thing, what other interesting things in the industry might they like to learn about next and why? And then the final point was what actions or key principles should a niche remember when trying to choose what things to play with? And this is the article that spat out. I'll just pull this up. This was on Uniswap, so a crypto decentralized exchange. And it spat out really, really good things because of the quality of the question. So it was like, imagine you're a newbie user and you've just discovered the exciting world of crypto and DeFi. You're eager to get involved and start building your own crypto portfolio, but you quickly realize it's not as easy as it sounds. So this is setting the scene. That's the output from the question because it spent the time, energy, and effort to set the scene. So this thing was great, including putting the process in it, the steps, and everything from all those questions, just bashed out great quality content. So I'm really, really stoked with that.
I love the explanation behind it because when we look at how you're thinking about it, it becomes more and more apparent how much the input is such a valuable, important part of the whole process. Let's touch on this because I think it's important. Authenticity of the actual output of AI. There's a lot of conversation around saying it's copying. And so let's talk about authenticity of AI and usability. And what is your philosophical stand on that?
I have a paradoxical position on this. At one end of the spectrum, I believe life is meant to be effortless and just joyful and fun and abundant and peaceful and all those kind of things. So I'm definitely a utilitarian when it comes to if we've got tools, let's use them, let's create the world that's really cool. At the other end of the paradox, I'm concerned about people having freedoms and sovereignties and all that sort of stuff taken away, obviously, given that I'm in crypto. And I think AI could quickly be censored and censor truths. Quite honestly, I think that's the dark side of this moon. I feel like, we kind of have philosophically a responsibility now that the can of worms can't be put back. Now that that's already happened, we have a responsibility, if we think that this is a bad thing for the world, to actually be really damn good at it and step up and take responsibility and play a role in it. So I kind of I hear people say, this is going to descend humanity, into its darkest corners and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's only if you're lazy and don't step up and take the action required so that there's enough people who have good values, morals, and ethics playing the game too. And I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be more than fine because there's plenty of people who have good intentions. There's more people who have good intentions than there are people who have bad intentions. There's definitely people on the planet who have bad intentions, but the number of them is much smaller. And everyone who's got good intentions just got superpowers.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on crypto because that's more your world and you've been in that for a while. Let's give someone an idea of that world from your standpoint, because I think I want to introduce that as an idea that is along the same lines, because that is not going away either.
Agreed. And it's $1 trillion market cap as we speak today. Like it did $62 billion in volume in the last 24 hours. It's not going away. But the thing that's interesting about this is I actually had someone put on one of my posts on the interwebs today saying crypto is just, a rehash of all human behavior. It's disgusting. It's blah. It's whatever, right? And I was thinking about that as you were talking just now. And the reflection for me is like, we live in a society right now where when you go to the law library, the finance section dwarfs all other sections combined because there's more financial laws than there are any other type of laws in the system. And that alone has to tell you something about finance, because regulators create rules. When people say to the regulator, hey, I've been hurt by X, that's when the regulators go, oh, we've got to appease the people. And what crypto gave us was a moment in time to reassess all the laws we have around money. Like it gave us a moment in time to reassess that. Now, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, is crypto the savior? Is it the devil? Is it whatever? It's none of those things. It's a moment in time for humans to reassess how we treat money and politics. And we went through a phase a few hundred years ago where we separated religion and politics, and we separated state from church. And now we're going through an opportunity to separate state from treasury. And that's what I see the real opportunity is to have a counterbalance against centralized money controllers, which is cool. But it gives us this moment in time to just really reassess what are our behaviors. Most people spend most of their lives trading their time for money. Most of your life force goes into trading time for money in different ways, whether you're a business owner or an employee or whatever. You are exchanging life force for money. And to give so much of your life to something and not understand it is just absurd. It's absurd. It makes no sense.
And when you put it that way, it becomes so obvious, right? And it's the perspective shift that is so important. And we give our attention and our energies to so many things. And I love the way you shifted that, because it's true. And every time now when I think of money, it's suddenly I feel more responsible to learn more about it. Right now, how does your content work? What are you putting out there for people to understand at what level? Are you talking to the person that's already convinced that crypto is a good idea? Or are you talking to people that are not yet, or that's still considering? Where are you at on that sort of spectrum?
Yeah, I'm really good at helping people who have played with it, got a little burnt, and now they're actually ready to learn. That's who I'm best at helping, and like naturally is attracted, because they've played the games. They've either messed around with some mining or trading or just buying and holding, or they've done some stuff and they got hurt some way, shape or form. And they're like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And basically, I mean, the TLDR of everything I do is thinking about how can people play a defensive game in an offensive world. And crypto is a volatile market. It's an offensive market. So how do you play defense when everyone else is playing offense? And literally just that juxtaposition creates like an awesome dynamic for people to be able to think about it, let alone the strategy that goes with it.
It's so true. And I feel like you have so many different philosophical positions. So I'm keen to understand from a business entrepreneurship point of view and creating value, what are your thoughts and how do you see the business world, right? There's a lot of different things happening out right now. Influencers is really fascinating in how they deliver value. And what is your philosophical position on entrepreneurship?
I think we're going through a massive shift in entrepreneurship right now. We've been through the last however many years of capitalism, and the current version of capitalism is fairly degenerative. It's mostly people playing win-lose games where they think that in order for them to win, other people have to lose. And I think we are going through a shift. We're seeing a lot of things like John Fullerton wrote a great paper on regenerative capitalism as a movement. And there's a great load of things like in crypto land. There's a corner of crypto called refi, which is regenerative finance, a movement that's happening. And I think what we're going to see is a movement towards win-win games, which are positive sum games, where we believe that the best way for us to win is for other people to win at the same time. And I'm not talking about communism. I'm not talking about making sure everyone gets the same piece of pie. I'm saying people who work together and put in effort together win together is the paradigm I think capitalism and entrepreneurship is moving towards, especially with all of the things that are happening like AI and DAOs and crypto and the decentralization of the workforce. Like your ability to be able to come and give value to something or create value as an individual and be rewarded for it is becoming more autonomous. Like I think someone who lives on planet Earth 200 years from now won't think about a career. They'll think about a craft, and then they'll go and use that craft on different entities, organizations, and projects and whatever, and they'll refine their craft. I believe we're going actually into an age of digital artisans. We had the time of like, you know, everyone was an artisan and you know, you go to Japan and you see it and there's all these people who are really like refined and honed their craft over years. I think in the digital era, we'll end up with digital artisans, someone who's just really good at commenting on things and that's their whole jam and they can get rewarded for it, you know, like, and I mean, we're already seeing this, you know, like TikTok Reacts videos are a great example of that, but like we're in an age of digital artisans. It's like you can refine a craft of just being really good at one thing and get rewarded for it. So it's getting weird, but I'd ask yourself this primary question, which is, how can I play win-win games in a seemingly win-lose world? And you will find answers. You will find answers as to how you can do that. And I think entrepreneurs should be thinking way more like that. And being aware that there's other people playing win-lose games is even a good shift, a context shift to be able to see it.
Love it. Well, I'm so glad I asked that question, even if it digressed from my line of questioning. Let's bring this back to AI for a second. Let's talk about, you know, how you see AI changing things, like keeping it on the philosophical lines as well. Like, you know, kind of how is it going to affect the job market? What does it look like? What is the view of the future of AI here in the usability sense?
I think in the short term, every strategy that's been working for the last 5 years is actually just going to work better. It's going to get amplified first before it gets disrupted. I think like using AI to do what you're already getting results out of is the wisest use of it, like the wisest short-term use, right? Double down, double click, use the generative tool to power the engine of what you're already doing really well. The second thing is I think your personal creativity as an individual is your most valuable asset. And in a world of AI, where contents and volume of contents is no longer a problem, creativity becomes king. So creativity to play with this stuff, creativity to express yourself in different ways is just going to go exponential. And it's already gone exponential. Like you look at 2023 and you look out and around in the world, and both of us have been here for 30, 40 and beyond years. And we look at the world now compared to when we were born. Another 30, 40 years from now, it ain't going to look anything like this in what's possible. But as to exactly what's going to happen, I don't know. I think, you know, I like Chamath Palihapitiya's comments on this. He said, when refrigerators were made, the refrigerator businesses did okay, but the person who really capitalized off it was Coca-Cola. They put a fridge in every little corner store and they built the biggest company in the world on the back end of refrigerators. He said AI is like that. That's the opportunity we have. So someone who uses AI as the engine room to put their product at the front of the market is going to be the person who wins. That's kind of a really good way to think about it, I think.
Love it. Well, I can keep having this conversation with you, Rossco. You're amazingly philosophical and interesting, and the way you think is amazing. I would love to catch up in person and have this conversation over a social lubricant. But ladies and gentlemen, Rossco.co/we are podcast. Go to that website, Rossco.co/SCO for all the cool stuff that he's up to. Dude, thank you so much for making the time and showing us all the cool stuff that you play with and how you use AI and all the prompts that you use, because it's extremely insightful. I have been playing with it for a while, but I've learned way too many new concepts just chatting with you. So thank you for everything.